The ocean has witnessed countless wars. Empires rose and fell upon its surface. Fleets clashed. Steel met fire. Nations gambled their futures on ships built to dominate the horizon. But only once did a war end on the deck of a battleship. That ship was USS Missouri. Before satellites tracked fleets, before missiles replaced guns, before war became invisible, there was steel, there was thunder, and there was Missouri. She was not built for peace. She was built for finality. In 1940, the world was already burning. Europe had collapsed into chaos. Asia was consumed by war. The oceans were no longer borders, they were battlefields. The United States understood something crucial. If this war reached its shores, it would not be short, and it would not be gentle. So America began building ships not just to fight, but to end wars. Among them was an Iowa-class battleship unlike any before, USS Missouri. She would become the last battleship ever commissioned by the United States Navy, and history would place her exactly where the world needed closure. Missouri was massive, over 45,000 tons of steel, 9 16-inch guns, each capable of firing a shell heavier than a small car. Armor thick enough to absorb punishment meant for cities. But she was also fast. At over 33 knots, she could keep pace with aircraft carriers, something older battleships could never do. She was not a relic of the past. She was the final evolution of the battleship, designed for a war where speed, protection, and overwhelming force had to exist together. Shipyard workers labored around the clock. Sparks flew, steel rang. Every rivet driven into Missouri carried urgency. This ship was not theoretical, it was necessary. When USS Missouri slid into the water in January 1944, the war was already reaching its climax. The Allies were advancing. Japan was retreating, but not surrendering. The Pacific War was becoming more brutal with every mile gained, and Missouri would soon sail directly into its heart. But no one yet knew that this ship would become the stage where World War II would end. USS Missouri was designed with one purpose: absolute dominance. There were no compromises in her construction. Her hull was long and sleek, engineered for speed without sacrificing stability. 4 massive turbines generated over 212,000 horsepower, pushing her faster than many destroyers. Speed was survival. It allowed Missouri to escort carriers, reposition quickly, and avoid becoming an easy target. Then there was armor. Battleships were judged not by how hard they could hit, but by how long they could stay alive. Missouri's armor belt reached over 12 inches thick, angled to deflect incoming shells. Her decks were reinforced against plunging fire. Vital areas, magazines, engines, command spaces were buried deep behind layers of steel. Designers assumed she would be hit. They designed her to keep fighting anyway. And then came the guns. 9-16-inch 50 caliber Mark 7 naval guns. Each turret weighed more than a destroyer. Each shell could travel over 20 miles. Each firing shook the ship itself. When Missouri fired a full broadside, the ocean didn't just ripple. It recoiled. Sailors described it as standing inside a thunderstorm made of steel. These guns were not precision weapons by modern standards. They were instruments of certainty. Where they landed, nothing remained intact. Missouri was also layered with secondary weapons. 5-inch dual-purpose guns protected her from aircraft and surface threats. Anti-aircraft batteries surrounded her decks, creating a deadly perimeter against incoming attacks. Radar systems extended her awareness beyond the horizon. She did not simply react. She anticipated. USS Missouri was not subtle. She was meant to be seen, because deterrence begins with belief. Belief that challenging this ship would be a fatal mistake. By 1944, the Pacific Ocean had become a killing field. Island after island fell under American assault. Japanese defenses grew more desperate. Kamikaze attacks turned the sky itself into a weapon. USS Missouri entered this environment as part of the U.S. Navy's fast carrier task forces. She was not hunting enemy battleships. She was protecting the heart of American power, aircraft carriers. Her radar scanned endlessly. Her guns stood ready. Her speed allowed her to respond instantly. When enemy aircraft approached, Missouri's anti-aircraft guns filled the sky with fire. When shore positions threatened landings, her main guns spoke. In battles like Iwo Jima and Okinawa, Missouri provided devastating naval gunfire support. From miles offshore, her shells tore into fortified positions. Bunkers collapsed. Artillery fell silent. Paths were carved for Marines landing under fire. Each shell fired meant fewer lives lost on the beaches. This was not glory. This was necessity. Kamikaze attacks intensified as the war dragged on. Pilots turned themselves into weapons. On April 11, 1945, a kamikaze aircraft struck USS Missouri. The explosion was violent, but Missouri survived. Her armor absorbed the impact. Fires were controlled. The ship remained operational. The pilot's remains were recovered, and something extraordinary happened. The captain ordered that the enemy pilot be buried at sea with full military honors. Even in total war, Missouri carried dignity. By mid-1945, Japan was collapsing. Cities burned under bombing raids. Naval power was shattered. Supply lines were cut, yet surrender did not come. The planned invasion of Japan promised casualties on an unimaginable scale. Millions could die. Then, everything changed. Atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war's end became inevitable, and the world needed a place, a moment to mark it. That place would be USS Missouri. September 2nd, 1945, Tokyo Bay. USS Missouri lay at anchor, her decks prepared not for battle, but for history. Representatives from the Allied powers assembled. Japanese officials arrived in silence. No more guns fired. No more engines roared. Only the sound of the sea. On Missouri's deck, documents were signed. With ink on paper, World War II ended. Not in a palace, not in a capital city, but on the deck of a battleship. Missouri's story did not end in Tokyo Bay. In 1950, war returned. Korea burned. Once again, Missouri's guns were called upon. She bombarded enemy positions, rail lines, and troop concentrations. Once again, her presence altered battles before soldiers ever arrived. The battleship age was fading, but Missouri still mattered. Decades later, Missouri returned again, modernized, rearmed with missiles. In 1991, during the Gulf War, USS Missouri fired cruise missiles at Iraqi targets. A ship built for World War II, fighting in the missile age. History repeating itself in steel. Today, USS Missouri rests as a museum ship, silent, still, yet powerful, because she represents something no other ship ever will. She did not just fight a war.